You are Locked On Dodgers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to the Locked On Dodgers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA, dating back to 2007 for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Dodgers Postcast brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rival city. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Well, the Dodgers with another nice win. Fortunately, they did not let this one slip away. They kept it within their grasp in spite of Christian Yelich getting the best of Evan Phillips, who's been really, really good. And joining me, one of my old co-hosts, Mark Leaker. Is it Leaker or a Leakler? Leclerc.
Don't play dumb. You know how to say the name. We've been partners on and off for like, I don't know how long now, 8 years, something like that. So shut up. It's Leclerc.
Too damn long to answer that question. Yes, Mark and I have done multiple shows together across various different platforms, including a podcast, which was probably the most fun I think we ever had. So
no question.
I've talked about you in glowing terms multiple times here on the show as to your prowess as a hitting instructor and how much I've learned from you as a hitting instructor and how much we are boggled in the mind at the way Shohei Ohtani hits and is able to be successful doing what he does. And I've been rather, frustrated and upset with him the last couple of nights, but I've also couched that with the comment that, hey, I'm not worried. I'm just upset that he went 0 for 5 and didn't looked terrible doing it, because I knew that this would be on a day like today would be on the heels of an 0 for 5 on his birthday. So, tonight a triple and the home run was one of those perfect emblematic at-bats of what Shohei Ohtani is capable of. Head on the ball, front side in, and just obliterated that ball. I mean, when he gets his timing down and he just torches one like that, I mean, I don't know that it makes me literally go like this. Holy cow, right?
Yeah.
Those things that is just eye-opening and really, really exciting. So I know when I get frustrated, it's only because he's capable of this. And when he's not doing this all the time, I think a lot of Dodger fans are like scratching their head and a little ticked off.
You're so spoiled. You spoiled, selfish pigs. How dare you? Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, 28 home runs this year. I mean, look, there's guys around the league that are fans of other teams, myself included. And it's like, if you get a Freddie Freeman type number, 300 average, 13 home runs, that OPS around 900, utterly spectacular. Like that's a legit all-star, superstar level. And then Ohtani's showing up and hitting 28 already before the All-Star break. And it's just, you can whine and you can fuss all you want about an 0 for 10 stretch, but it's baseball and it's going to happen that way from time to time. But you're right. It does look funky as all get out when he is not producing, because there's so much to criticize with that swing. There's so much with him flying off the ball or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, here we go. Are we going to get exposed? Or how is this going to go? Are they on to him? And the answer is no. If the answer is no, he's too good. He's just too good.
Yeah, indeed he is. That ball.
And I would never teach it. I would never teach it that way, but he does it, and he looks so good doing it.
A lot of it has to do with his size and strength, that it doesn't really matter. I think the problem is that I think for him, he's one of those guys that probably doesn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it because he's so naturally gifted that he just gets up there, see ball, hit the ball. And, he thinks he can hit everything, right?
What's weird, though, is the Japanese style, right? All of a sudden, do we just accept the fact? It's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. All the Japanese hitters that come over here, they're all lefties, right? Matsui, Ichiro, now Ohtani, but they're all right-handed throwers. So they're taught to hit lefty. They're taught to hit this style from a very early age, and they're onto something. Whatever they're doing, the guys that do it at an elite level do it in a way that is not only confusing, but it's like Hall of Fame legendary good, all-star level, multi-all-star level good.
Yeah, one of the other things I've noticed about his style that I think is interesting is that he doesn't load a ton. That also speaks to his strengths. He's there. He's in a very comfortable position, gets the zone, and sometimes it's not even in the zone, and he mashes it, right? So, when the ball is, I think he struggles a little bit with and John Smoltz pointed this out today, the breaking balls down and in, right? The one that comes in over the plate and then just cuts hard and dives away at his feet. That's the one that he thinks looks tasty, but will, hack at that ball and misses it by a ton. His head's pulling off the whole thing. So that seems to be, although last night he swung at one that was a good 8 inches out of the zone up. It was a fastball that was riding up that he was, hacking at as well. So, again, I feel like he's just so good and confident about his swing. He's like, whatever, it's anywhere around this little area. Like Dave Roberts told him, look, you're looking for an area about the size of a phone book, right? Just stay in that zone and you'll be greater. So I think he has to be reminded of that on occasion. But another guy that has been locked in today and yesterday was Will Smith, another guy that I think is one of the best hitters in baseball. I know you and I have talked a lot about how much you have liked Mookie Betts' swing before anyone else did. And I feel like Will Smith has that similar kind of compact, tight, effortless swing. And 4 home runs over the last 2 days has been pretty remarkable. It kind of faded off because he struck out his last at bat. And he struck out twice today in a fantastic at bat that went 11 pitches. It was a clutch situation. It was a great battle between Peralta and Smith. But in the end, Peralta got the best of him. And I think my favorite part of this, and I believe you're not a big fan of John Smoltz, and I don't know why people hate him so much, but
I'm not. That's not true. Don't paint me with that brush. I'm fine with Smoltzy.
Okay. There's a lot of people that think he's an anti-Dodger hater and, is always rooting for the Braves, obviously. Who wouldn't be? But, he can't have an unbiased perspective. But ultimately, I feel like he brings a lot of information, a lot of very good knowledge, and I really enjoyed his breakdown of that Will Smith at bat. He ended up striking out on the 4th, but it was really cool how excited Smoltz got about that at bat because he's like, this is what I miss about being in the game, this cat and mouse back and forth between the pitcher and the hitter, and it was really cool to see how he got into that and explained it, and I thought it was very insightful. Yeah,
Smith, he battled. I mean, he absolutely did. That could have cost him. I mean, Yelich, ends up hitting the go-ahead homer in the 8th. And is it just me, or does Yelich always look like the bat's too heavy for him when he swings the bat? And I was watching him swing. I'm like, it always feels like he's swinging like a 45-ounce bat. And then all of a sudden, I made this proclamation that he put one over the center field fence. I'm like, okay, so I can shut up now. Thank you very much. But no, Smith had a great at bat, and coming after 3 home runs yesterday, another home run today. Puts in the long at bat. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Peralta willed himself through that exchange. I was actually more impressed with Peralta than I was critical of Smith or Freeman to follow. I mean, that was a really gutsy inning for him because he had struggled to that point. The Dodgers had guys on. He was in real trouble there. Walks Ohtani. And then, you're in a deep spot and, having to go into the well with an 11 pitch at bat. And finally, it just ends with, bro, here it is. Up in the zone, dead red. I got nothing left to fool you on. You fouled off so many sliders, so much nonsense. Here it is. You and me. If you could hit it, hit it. I don't even care anymore. And he beat him. So tip your cap.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, absolutely. Because as Smoltzy pointed out, he mixed it up with all kinds of, he threw his best off-speed pitches, the slider, the cutter, the curve, the change. He even threw a fastball that Will Smith fouled off. And at that point, you're right. It was probably like, power against power. I'm going to throw a fastball up in the zone and hope it gets by you. And it did. So yeah, give him credit, tip your cap, because he won the battle, but it was still exciting and fun. It really, it could have affected the Dodgers more than it look, if he gets a hit there, the game is over at that point, pretty much, because that gives the Dodgers a 2-run lead at that point of the game. But although it's the 4th inning, so it wasn't really, there was still a long way to go at that point, but it felt like a big pivotal moment. And the fact that the Dodgers didn't come away with anything there, but went on to win the game is also something that I feel good about, because they've been a team on occasion of late that puts up runs early like they did today, and then kind of just, meanders through the rest of the game. Although they've had some comeback wins, you can't rely on that. You'd like them to, picket fence it through the game and put up more than 2 or 3 runs in 1 or 2 innings. So I think that today was a nice, a nice effort to put up 3 in the beginning and then 2 in the 8th and get the 5-3 win.
Well, it was, but I don't know. The way I look at the Dodgers right now, it's sort of the way I look at those old, not to mix metaphors across sports, but they know they're going to be in the playoffs. It almost feels like sometimes they can get a little complacent, especially with how many playoff spots there are, how much they are ahead in the National League West. It's like, doesn't this remind you of the old Lakers teams, the old Spurs teams? You know what I mean? It was just like, just get me in the dance. Just give me in the dance and we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily on a premium. And obviously, it's not the same in baseball, as the Dodgers have been proving since 1988. It's not just as easy over the last 10 years as just get it in and we'll catch a World Series or 2 or 3. It's not that. It's not the same way in this sport. And I understand that. And they've had a lot of pitching injuries to their starting staff and guys that they were counting on being there. Maybe they, are just never going to actually evolve and be in the space that they had aspired them to be in. Whether it's Walker Buehler's arm problems, Dustin May, some of those guys with electric stuff that just aren't there. So, there could be other factors at play, but I look at it as almost like a complacency. Like the division, the postseason appearance is almost a foregone conclusion. And, in the heart of summer, you're going to get some complacency in the sport. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, indeed. I feel like they get up for better teams, and against the West, for whatever reason, they just kind of ho-hum their way through it. And
sure.
that sometimes gets me a little bit upset. And as one of our viewers on YouTube said yesterday, the host has lost his mind, and that she said that I'm mean-spirited and childish. And I said, well, yes, you're right.
I agree.
I had lost my mind.
And I agree completely, but perhaps not on this issue.
I was mean-spirited, but I was not childish. So I said 2 out of 3. You're right on. All right, let's take a quick break. You can hang out because I want to go over the.
Sure.
We do a thing here, Mark, on the podcast called the Diamond Dogs. I know you're a big Ted Lasso fan like me, and we do the top 5, 6, plays of the game. So we're gonna do that next, and I look forward to your analysis of my top 5 or 6 of this game. This is the Locked On Dodgers postcast. I am Pete Fox, joined by an old co-host of mine, Mark LeCaire. Of course, you can find us on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. We will hit the break, come back, and get into the Diamond Dogs list. All right, tonight's episode of the Locked On Dodgers postcast brought to you by Tax Network USA. As you know, here at Locked On Dodgers Postcast, we pride ourselves in getting you the latest info, the latest news, the latest updates on what's going on with your team, and that being the Dodgers. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs, or the dog days of summer, we're after it year-round. You know what else is a year-round thing? Collection season with the IRS. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and you don't want that because that is not a good feeling. And they can also seize property from you. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ business rating with the Better Business Bureau, the Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, maybe you had a big year and you have extra income that you need to account for or write off, or maybe you just finally hit a big parlay that you've been trying to hit for a long time and you need to figure out how to file that thing correctly. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. That's tnusa/locked on. All right, Dodgers with a 5-3 win today. They were up 3-2 for a good portion of this game, and then Christian Yelich hit a bomb to center field. That was a no-doubter, 429 feet. Came on a slider.
That was a slider. It was just dead red. He just hung that thing center cut, and Yelich with his bat that's too heavy for him just clocked it.
Yeah, he does look like he's about 17, right?
That bat looks too big. Sometimes he's laid on that outside fastball, and I'm like, does that thing weigh 6 pounds? Like, what are you up there? Are you up there with an oak tree? What's happening with you?
Yeah, so that came on a slider, went 429 feet, and then the Rhys Hoskins home run was another. The Dodgers over the last few days have given up a fair share of home runs, and it seems like almost all of them have been on, as you put it, dead red fastballs right down Main Street. And once again, the Rhys Hoskins home run, a four-seamer up in the zone, right over the plate. Hit one out yesterday. Exact same pitch. I expect with all of this scouting that they do, I would expect that they know that. Stop throwing fastballs over the middle to home run hitters, right?
Wait, should we write this down? Don't throw it down the middle. Is that your takeaway from today? That's your glowing advice. Don't sit center cut. As it turns out, it's hard. It's really hard. From 60 feet 6 inches, a millimeter off on your release point, extrapolated over that distance, can lead itself to be 6 inches off. It's just the way it goes.
Well, it's also a little bit simplistic of what I'm trying to say. In certain counts, at certain times, in certain positions with runners on base.
Yes.
You know, like if you're up 3 and there's nobody on base and it's the 5th or 6th inning and a home run, it doesn't matter. That's fine. But in high leverage situations, stop throwing fastballs to home run hitters. Maybe it's too obvious. Maybe it's too simplistic. Maybe I am an idiot. I don't know. We'll see. Sometimes I am. Listen, I am also mean-spirited and childish. So,
well, indeed, we all know this. It's been well documented for many, many moons.
And I've lost my mind. All right, for number 5, obviously Will Smith's homer, a 2-1 four-seamer. One of the things that was ticking me off about this, tell me if this bothered you. They kept saying that Will Smith homered in 4 consecutive at-bats because he had 2 walks. And I know a walk is technically not an at-bat, but it's not 4 consecutive at-bats. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're absolutely right. And by the way, while we're on it, a combined no-hitter is no real no-hitter at all.
Yeah, that one I don't mind as much because you're speaking specifically about it being a combined no-hitter. But to say Will Smith homered in 4 at-bats because he mixed in 2 walks, it's not true.
But just add the caveat of 4 official at-bats. He's homered in his last 4 official at-bats based on the walks. Just add the caveat and we're fine.
So right after Will Smith, the first 4 got on base tonight for the Dodgers. Freddie followed with a single, as did Teoscar Hernandez. So another nice start to the game, and I think that's a good feeling for any team. You get on base in the bottom of the first, that feels good, and that's a confident spot to be in. And I always like it when the Dodgers are on the road and they score, right out of the gate, or when they're at home and they strike out the side or set the side down in order and then score in the bottom of the first. These are good ways to start a game. Again, might be obvious, but it's nice when it happens. For number 4, Andy Pages legged out a single in the first. Turned out to be an RBI, and it gave the Dodgers a 3-1 lead. This is a guy that just continues to make things happen in spite of, to me, having one swing. Like he's still a rookie with that one plane swing. Occasionally, he'll shorten up, put the ball in play. But today, even with that, it wasn't a check swing, but it was just a cued ball that wasn't hit solid, but he legged out a single there. So he plays hard. What are your feelings on Pages? I don't know if we've talked about his swing or not. To me, it feels like it's one of the, I call it the launch angle swing, because it always seems like he's just trying to hit a home run. And it doesn't feel like there are different swings in his arsenal. It's like, I'm going to swing this way and whatever happens, happens.
I don't need different swings. I just need a good swing. You mentioned Mookie Betts earlier, but it's funny. I was on Twitter the other day and I was watching a post from George Brett. Maybe you've heard of him. Turns out pretty good hitter back in his day on the way to the Hall of Fame. And you could have put my face on his body and had the same words come out as far as hitting, and just staying elongated through the zone, just getting in early and extending through it, and just having a long time spent. And he was just talking about, why do you think I never struck out so much? And these days, all these guys want to do is hit home runs, hit the ball in the air. And it's like, you know what, bro, not everybody can be Aaron Judge, and it's not, and even if you put the ball in the air, unless you're a guy built of that stature, it's just not going to have the same output, and for me, look, he had a really good series against the Giants that I saw. He had 3 games there. He did a really good job. But yeah, it's just so easy to disrupt your timing when you spend so little time in the hitting zone. And that can be a very fragile place to be in as a baseball hitter. And I would like to see him flatten out a little bit, much like the aforementioned Mookie Betts. Like Freddie Freeman tries to be, speaks about being, but doesn't always get into. Sometimes he can be a little bit long and loopy through the zone too. But even he has talked about that is his aspiration when he goes up to the plate, is to spend a long time flat through the zone. So, if he continues to do it, everybody catches up with you. There's a reason that Chris Bryant and Will Myers and guys like that used to have that, launch angle, loop, swoop, and pull, trying to hit everything over the left field fence. There's a reason they came on strong and then they kind of just disappeared into the ether. Major League Baseball exposes you. If you're going to do that, if you're going to chase those things, that slider down and away, that fastball up and in, those are going to be your kryptonite.
Yeah. I think he'll get it figured out. Hopefully. It was nice to see James Outman back at the major league level with 2 hits today. He got on the list at number 2. Miggy Rojas, a single to lead off the 4th inning, was a nice piece of hitting by him. He continues to take care of business at the plate. Average still up around 280. Yeah, 282 to be specific. The OPS is well over 700. So Miggy Rojas is continuing to thrive and take advantage of this time with Mookie Betts on the IL. For number 1, I have Shohei Ohtani with the triple. And then, of course, the no-doubter, his 28th in the 8th inning, 430 feet. Didn't even look like he really – it probably was one of those at-bats where he didn't feel the ball come off of the bat because it was so pure and so perfectly struck, and an absolute no-doubt home run. And then, of course, Miguel Vargas, was that the tying home run, or that was the
go-ahead?
Yeah,
that was the go-ahead that Christian Yelich got caught in the fence. That was his big mistake because he didn't find the wall. When you're going back on a ball and you feel that dirt hit your feet on the warning track, your primary job is to make sure you're aware of how close you are to the fence, and you want to beat the ball to the spot. You don't want to drift with it. Yelich drifted with that fly ball and then lost track of where he was on the warning track. He just went to reach up and catch the ball, but having to reach backwards and not understanding that he was 6 inches from the fence because he didn't use his bare hand to find the fence. So when he didn't do that, he jumped backwards or reached up backwards. Glove got caught on the top of the wall, bounced off the top, home run Dodgers.
Yeah. I think, look, it was probably catchable, but I feel like analysts and fans, for that matter, think that play looks easier than it is, right?
It does, but at the major league level, 80% of left fielders minimum catch that ball. Yeah. And Yelich is a premium primetime defender, and he will be. If Ohtani doesn't hit the next one, I promise you Christian Yelich ain't sleeping tonight.
Yeah, he had his back square to the fence. I think if he had his shoulders rotated and his glove up, he probably would catch. But it was good for Miguel Vargas. It was a pinch hit home run for him, and that guy continues to be red hot, batting over 400 still since being called up from AAA. Again, James Outman back in the lineup, and I was like, oh no, here we go, because his first at bat struck out on 3 pitches, and I was like, are we right back where we left off a month and a half ago? But his next at bat hit the ball hard to right field, then a couple of base hits, so that was good to see. We have one more break, and you've come this far, Mark. I always say 10 minutes; it ends up being the whole show. So stay there.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Why not?
We'll wrap this thing up. He's Mark LeCaire, one of my old co-hosts. I am Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Dodgers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. All right, tonight's show also brought to you by Booking.com. I just got back from vacation. I used Booking.com when I was on vacation, and I've been reading this spot frequently over the last few days, and it's only thing it's making me want to do is go back on vacation. As I said, the Locked On Dodgers postcast tonight is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore some U.S. cities that, you maybe haven't explored before, but you've always secretly wanted to know a little bit more about. And we're talking about the city where your team's rival lives. Like for the Dodgers, San Francisco, Arizona, Phoenix, fantastic cities to visit. This time of year, Phoenix, I would say, is a little less desirable because of the temperature being well into the 120s. So maybe you pick San Francisco and go up there and catch a Dodger Giant game. San Diego be good. Always fun to go to Petco and watch the Dodgers take on the Padres at Petco Park in downtown San Diego in the Gaslamp District, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rivals city. From hotels that overlook the stadiums, as the aforementioned Petco does, to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this Major League Baseball season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, regardless of what team resides there, even if it is your rival's team. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Dodgers with a 5-3 win. Shohei Ohtani on base 5 times. Gets out of that 2-day 0-for-10 slump where he was completely and absolutely non-existent. An afterthought, which is not something we say all that much about Shohei Ohtani. Will Smith today felt like he did more than he did. Led off the game with a home run, but then was just 1 for 5, couple of RBIs, struck out twice. One was a key strikeout, but nonetheless a very good at bat. Freddie Freeman 1 for 3 today with the run scored, 2 walks. Teoscar had a hit. Andy Paz was 0 for, as I mentioned. Outman had 2 hits. Miguel Rojas had a hit. Gavin Lux 0 for, still over 200 though. Vargas came in with the pinch hit home run, and his average at 349. So everything, going well for the most part, with Mookie Betts being out. What is we talk a lot here on the postcast, Mark, about the Dodgers pitching staff, and primarily, I mean, the starting pitching staff. Most people would say that the Dodgers are a little thin in the starting rotation. I don't know that I think that's accurate at this point in time. I feel like they're okay. But we talk a lot about the here and now, and occasionally, obviously, that blends into the future. What are they going to look like in the postseason? And I get that. So yeah. I feel like, look, the Dodgers, there's a lot of question marks hanging around their starting staff. Even today's starter, James Paxton, who went 5, gave up 2 runs on 5 hits. And he's a guy that bends, not breaks. He's a very, experienced pitcher, but is by no means dominant. 50% of his pitches are not strikes. And that's throughout the season, but yet and still, he's like 6-1 or 6-2, whatever his record is. It's very good. So I don't know if he's a guy that you would hang your hat on in the postseason. Yamamoto's dealing with elbow, shoulder issues, which is never good. Clayton Kershaw, he's old, and I don't think they would rely on him to start games in the postseason. I think he's an innings eater at this point, even in the postseason. Walker Buehler, there's a question mark hanging over his head. So really, we got about 2 or 3 guys right now that are solid and doing good work, outing after outing. Do you think the Dodgers need to go acquire some pitchers and that will be starters?
It sure seems that way. It really does. I mean, how many times are we going to continue to do these laps around Clayton Kershaw in the postseason? I mean, even his most ardent of supporters have got to at least admit at this point that even when he's pitching his best during the regular season, once that calendar hits October, it is a complete anomaly. I mean, it's just, he's a different human being, and I don't even understand it. But leave him aside. Walker Buehler, we don't know what we're going to get from him. There's just no way to know. I mean, is it going to be another setback? Is this going to nag? Is this never going to be? I mean, here's the thing. It's, it was the comparisons earlier about this kid reminds you of Tim Lincecum, but maybe you're getting a Rich Harden. Maybe you're getting a Mark Pryor. Maybe you're getting a Kerry Wood of what could have been. Maybe there's just too many injuries. Maybe he'll never ascend to the heights that seemed as though they were limitless early on in his career. I don't know. Where's Dustin May? Not around. I mean, and James Paxton is fine. I mean, geez, if you should be so lucky as to have James Paxton as your number 4 starter, but number 2, I don't think so. Especially when you're lining up to play the Phillies in the postseason, you're gonna have to go get more arm help. And by the way, get in line. 31 other teams think the same thing. And there's never enough arms. There's never enough depth. There's never enough dominance in that rotation. But especially in this case, with a team that just consistently continues to go all in every season, seemingly spend all the money, bring in all the guys, do all the things. And yet, where are the championships? Where's the rings? Where's all the things? Where's the accolades? They continue to elude them. And if they don't solidify that starting staff, I don't see another ending to this season being different from anything else we've seen over the last several years.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is on Dodgers minds, Dodger fans' minds on a daily basis, without a doubt. I feel like the bullpen is good now with a lot of guys that are out, like Joe Kelly and Brusdar Graterol. So when they get a few of those guys back, they're going to be even better, and they're still fine. And I really liked the fact tonight that they did exactly the same thing that they did yesterday. The same guys in the same rotation, although they put Evan Stone in the 8th inning, which was a bit of a head scratcher. So they had to bring Vesia in to close in the 9th, and he did a fine job because he's been very, very good of late. But all of these guys came in and took care of business tonight, and that was nice to see. So
but they did it. The Dodgers came back in the bottom of the 8th. They gave the lead up. Yelich hit the bomb. You and I were talking about the show and the timing of this being like, hey, sit tight because we may have extras. You know what I mean?
That is true. Yeah, I tend to forget about that when it's a win in the end. But yeah, Evan Phillips did give up the game tying home run.
Yeah.
Ultimately gets the win, so it doesn't come away with any damage from the giving up the home run. His ERA is a little bit higher, but he's been really. I mean, you can't complain about these guys. You can't expect them, Mark. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't expect them to be perfect every single night. These guys are going to be, on occasion, they're going to have an off night. But Hudson's been good of late. He was bad against the Giants. I'm sure you saw that. Blake Trinan also has been very, very good. He's given up a grand total of 6 runs all season on 2 home runs. One of them a grand slam against the Giants. And Vesia still got a 1.36 ERA. So tonight on 17 pitches, 1 strikeout, the rest zeros. So he's dominant as well. I feel like what they've got going in the bullpen with what's injured and on its way back, or who's on their way back, I feel like they've got plenty of firepower in the bullpen. But I'm starting to careful.
But be careful, because you know what? It's only the All-Star break. And if you don't have starters going deep into games, you can mitigate this for about 80 to 100 games. And then what happens is they get gassed, and then they get vulnerable, and then they get taxed, and then they get beat down. And if you're overusing guys, there's nothing left to get you over to the exact space you want to be, which is winning a World Series, competing for a World Series, competing for an LCS, and if you don't have the bullpen, I mean, that is the common denominator. Aside from the Dodgers Astros World Series from, several years ago, when both teams just looked like they had bullpens that were in utter disarray, I can't think of another exception where the team that won the World Series didn't have a lockdown bullpen, didn't have depth, didn't have defined 7, 8, 9 inning guys that they knew they could count on when it was a 1-run game to lock it down. Get me through 6 and we got you on lock. That was the rare exception, but it was both teams. It was a disaster. It was a weird scenario, but that was the one exception. And now it's like, if you're going to cash them out to get there, what are you going to get when you are there?
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's definitely something that I feel like needs to be addressed a little bit, because the other thing that came up yesterday, Tyler Glasnow and his usage rate, right? He's he's coming up on numbers that he's never experienced before, and that is obviously something that's worrisome. Gavin Stone's a young pitcher. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, elbow and shoulder stuff, you just don't know what comes of that.
Right. The last thing you want to do is push out a sprain or a strained UCL until that thing pops. And now what do you got? You got a year and a half. See you later, kid.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know what's going to be come of him throughout the rest of this season. That is very worrisome for sure. Like you said, Paxton, it could be worse without a doubt. Bobby Miller, big question mark as to what he's all about, coming off of the IL as well. So I feel like they look, the Dodgers are always going to be aggressive and active during the trade deadline, trying to acquire somebody. But as you pointed out, so is everybody else. Hey, real quick before we wrap this thing up, I don't know if you caught the discussion from Joe Davis and John Smoltz about changing the way bullpens are used and having starters and then super relievers that come in and pitch 3 innings, 3 days a week, as opposed to 1 inning almost every day of the week. I thought that was kind of interesting. I feel like the Brewers are always on the cutting edge of trying things different that are weird and that we've never seen before. So it feels like they're probably discussing this and have talked about doing it and are on occasion trying to do it. Tonight they had Peralta went 4, and then the guy that came in after him, I believe his name's Wilson, he went 2 or 3 innings. So maybe this is what the Brewers are trying to do.
Well, if you think about the idea of a closer in the pantheon of baseball history, it's a relatively new concept. Goose Gossage was going 2-3 innings in his 70s. Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? Like one of those guys that would just get on the hump and go, all right, so where are we at? About 1 out in the 7th. All right, sit down, fellas. I got you. You know what I mean? That was it. So it's not an absurd thought. You know what I mean? Why couldn't that exist? And I think he's right, especially with all of the arm injuries, with everybody taught to just, hey, yo, chuck it as hard as humanly possible. It's like, then the UCL pops up and goes, hey, but there's a problem with that. Yeah, I'm fragile. This hurts. Oh, there I go. And then you're out 18 months. You know what I mean? And maybe you're never the same again. So, if that's where we're at and everybody's just trying to throw it 100 miles an hour from the time they're 12 years old to the time that they're 22 years old, about 24 years old, by the time they've been through collegiate or high school or minors, they've been doing this stuff for 5-6 years before they even end up in the majors. It's not just the innings you log in the show. It's the innings you log on the way to even get noticed. Yeah. And by that point, some guys are just not going to be there anymore. There's so many throwers. There's not enough pitchers. And the reality is that things are going to break down. And if you can figure out, worth its weight in gold to have a guy that can go 2 or 3 innings, I couldn't agree with them more. I don't know if it's attainable. I don't know how that works, but I think that should be the direction Major League Baseball is now going.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes of all of this, because without a doubt, pitching for the most part is what makes or breaks a team in the postseason, as you pointed out. So I think it's definitely on the minds of Dodger fans for sure, and something that they'll need to address sooner before later. But the trade deadline right around the corner, definitely Dodgers going to be active in that. We have to hope. All right, Mark, that's going to do it. We made it through an extra 8 minutes. So I'm sorry I kept you for more than 10.
No, I loved it. Good hearing from you, my brother.
Indeed. That's the Locked On Dodgers postcast. He is Mark LeClaire. I'm Pete Fox. We will do this again down the road at some other point when time permits. Dodgers post a 5-3 win over the Brewers tonight. They're now 55-35. Brewers fall to 52-38. Back tomorrow for the finale as the Dodgers look for the sweep. Be underway at 1:10 at the Ravine. Dallas Keuchel, he's still in the league. Wow. We'll take on probably a bullpen day, maybe Landon Knack. Dodgers are undecided as to who the starter will be as of right now. Don't forget to check us out on the Locked On Dodgers postcast, on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, and the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed, where you can find our friends Jeff and Vince Monday through Friday breaking it down. Thanks again, buddy. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right. You can give